Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Benjamin Hale. We warmly welcome the United States Coast Guard delegation, accompanied by the Australian Border Force. We also welcome the Australian Defence College delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome the members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Sacred Heart School from Kew in Victoria. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could come to mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Acting Bombardier Thomas Stephen Cumming. Thomas was born in Brighton, Victoria, on the 19th of September 1912, the son of James and Mary Cumming. He went on to work as an estate agent until June 1940, when he enlisted for service in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. After joining a training brigade and then a field training regiment based at Geelong, he transferred to the newly established 2nd 4th Anti-Tank Regiment, formed in November 1940 at Puckapunyal. The regiment was assigned to the 8th Australian Division. In early February 1941, Cumming deployed to Singapore with the regiment's 13th Battery to support the 22nd Infantry Brigade, which had been sent to bolster the garrison in Malay in case of a Japanese invasion. When the Japanese invasion of Malay began, the 13th Battery moved to Kluang to continue their infantry support role. Despite some successes, the 22nd Brigade withdrew towards the island of Singapore, fighting delaying actions. By the end of January, the last Allied troops had crossed the Johor Causeway, which was blown up to prevent the Japanese from using it. As the Japanese prepared to cross the strait, Cumming and his unit were in support of the 27th Infantry Brigade in the Causeway sector. With the Japanese attack in early February, heavy fighting took place. Over the course of a week, the regiment's batteries fought numerous local actions, often with just a single gun, as the Allies were pushed back towards Singapore town. With the surrender of Singapore on the 15th of February, Cumming became a prisoner of war of the Japanese. Initially held at Changi prison, he was one of the first 3,000 Australian prisoners of war to be sent out to join the labour forces, becoming part of A-Force. The men of A-Force sailed from Singapore on the 15th of May 1942 in 2 small, overcrowded steamers, on which an epidemic of dysentery broke out almost immediately. Over 1,000 men of A-Force disembarked at Victoria Point in the far south of Burma. Another 1,000 were sent to Mergui, and the remainder, including Cumming, to Tavoy. All were initially tasked with building airfields. At first, the conditions for prisoners were adequate, if basic. The Japanese control was fairly lax, and the Australian commander, Brigadier Arthur Varley, established a relatively good working relationship with the Japanese. Despite this, prisoners who attempted to escape were executed without trial, despite the protest of the Australian officers. In June, one of the first attempts at escape from Burma was made by 8 members of the 2nd 4th Anti-Tank Regiment at Tavoy, led by Warrant Officer Quittenden and including Acting Bombardier Thomas Cumming. The group, later known as the Tavoy 8, were soon recaptured. 4 days later, they were executed by firing squad. Thomas Cumming was 30 years old. Today, his remains and those of his companions lie buried at Tanbayazat War Cemetery. The Tavoy 8 were posthumously awarded the Commendation for Gallantry by the Commonwealth Government of Australia in March 2011. Thomas Cumming's name is listed on the roll of honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Acting Bombardier Thomas Stephen Cumming, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.